There we are, we're back, we're live. Very good. Welcome. Beautiful day where I am. I'm going to flip the screen here. Yeah, it's amazing, amazing day. I hope you can hear me. I've got the microphone in very close here because it is windy. It is blowing, that is for sure, in the beautiful Indonesia. I'm speaking to self-awareness today. And we want to understand what is self-awareness and why it's important. We want to understand how it can assist us in living a better life, a more efficient life, in maximising our lives, in maximising our potential. Hi Tanil, hi Jan, how are you? It's warm, but it's windy, but it's magnificent. I think a storm's coming in. Got to get you seeing this again. It's phenomenal. Just so beautiful. Stunning. Corey, how are you? Welcome. So, self-awareness, what is it? Well, self-awareness is when we begin to understand ourselves. Hi, Joni, how are you? Thank you. When we begin to understand ourselves and know who we are, how we behave, how we act, we understand our emotional conduct, we understand how we respond and react to certain situations. We know our emotional dispositions. We understand our character type. We understand our likes, our dislikes. We know what suits us in life. We know what doesn't. Being self-aware encompasses understanding and knowing self in entirety. Hey, darling. So it's not just knowing one aspect of self, it's knowing every aspect of self. But in saying that, there are levels of self-awareness. There are quality. There's a quality of self-awareness that takes place. Have a look at this. There's dogs everywhere here. Every beach is a dog beach. It's so good. I love doggies. So effectively, what we're trying to understand with regards and respect to self-awareness is knowing ourselves, knowing our dispositions, knowing the intricacies of how our mind works. And of course, it's an evolving process. But effectively, self-awareness is self-improvement. So the greater we know ourselves, the more we understand ourselves. Sorry, it could be a little bit windy there. The more we understand ourselves, and the deeper we understand ourselves, we have a capacity and at least a potential to improve ourselves. And what I mean by improvement, I'm talking about evolution. I'm talking about value alignment. I'm talking about identifying and gaining clarity on our purpose and who we are and who we wish to be, and then living in fulfillment, in alignment with that purpose or with those values. And we're able to do that. One of the key components of self-improvement, hi Derek, how are you, or self-evolution, evolution of self, is being self-aware. So really understanding what we resonate with, what we don't resonate with, what we are attracted to, what we're not attracted to. So let me elaborate a little bit more on that. So effectively, when we're looking at being self-aware, we're really wanting to understand where we want to be in life and who we wish to be. So there's no point in engaging in activities or experiences that don't align with your highest values or what's most important to you. I'm going to give you an example. There's some people here on the beach practicing fitness. Okay? Now, irrespective of, irrespective of what they're doing, that's not relevant. What is relevant, we're going to make an assumption here, is that they are there by choice. You see, when we're self-aware, we're able to connect to ourselves and make choices with greater efficacy. Personality and soul awareness, that's an integral part, Joni, absolutely. It is an integral part of understanding self. So understanding our personality types is so important. Understanding, are we an introvert? Are we an extrovert? Not to label, I'm not a fan of categorizing and labeling, but understanding, how do we respond in social situations? Are we someone that prefers to have time on our own? And if so, can we get the most out of ourselves by doing that? So that's a level of understanding and connecting to self that self or practices of self-awareness give us. So it's very important to be able to connect to those deep integral practices of self-awareness, which we're going to speak to a few later on. We're going to speak to a few very soon. So when we're looking at cultivating self-awareness and cultivating a deeper understanding of self and moving through life in such a way that we prioritize ourselves in a selfish, selfless manner, if that makes sense. And I've spoken to selfish selflessness before many a time. I've spoken to it in the sense that, Brad, how are you, my friend? I've spoken to it where we prioritize ourselves and we come from a place of, Robbie, how are you? We come from a place of empowerment. We come from a place of wanting to be of service to the evolution of our own path, of our own growth, but also to be of service to others. Joni says personality is the reactive part of who we are, and soul is what really drives us. Yeah, and that's an important point, Joni. Another way to look at that is, see, personality is a social construct. Thank you very much. Personality is a construct that we develop through conditioning. We can look at our soul or the evolution of self or the spirit matter of self or the immaterial aspect of self, and we say that can be our true form. Brad. And Plato used to speak to that deeply. He spoke to that in his Republic. Plato was an ancient philosopher from about 2,500 years ago. And he spoke to our essence being the truest form that we are, or that we possess. And it's that essence that really drives us. And everything else is somewhat superficial, not meaningless, but somewhat superficial. And that becomes quite interesting when we look at that point. So again, engaging in process of self-awareness, and we're going to speak to a few tools in a moment, allow us to connect to that aspect of self and understand self in a very, very different way than if we don't inquire about self. And there's a little bit of insight, because one of those tools is self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is such a powerful, inspirational tool for transformation, for inner growth, and for understanding and connecting to self. You see, most of the time, sorry I'm moving this camera around, guys. I don't have my extension thing with me, and anyway, I'm switching arms because my shoulders are getting tired. Don't crucify me for it. Dakota, how are you, brother? So here it is. When we're able to understand ourselves, when we're able to connect to ourselves, we live life very differently. We don't live life according to other people's values. We live life according to our values, what's most important to us. We begin to live life and understand life from a place that resonates with the truest essence of who we are. But the only way we can discover the truest essence of who we are is to self-inquire. And that's one of the first and most important tools for growth and awareness and understanding self, is that process of self-inquiry. Many people say, well, what is self-awareness, and why must we cultivate self-awareness? Why must we understand ourselves in that way? Of what value is that, and how does that serve us? Self-awareness is self-improvement. Self-awareness is understanding self. Understanding self allows us to engage in experiences that resonate truest with who we are and who we wish to be. We're not wasting life. You see, here it is. Life is finite, irrespective of whether, if you say life is short or long, that's a very relative term. Short and long to what? What's it compared to? But when you say life is finite, because it is, even with the advent of technology and biosynthetics and where we're moving as a species, understanding genetics and understanding cellular development and a number of different aspects of science and human biology and so forth, we may live, and I very much believe this, in the next 5-10 years, the new 120 or 130 years of age is going to be the new 80 or 70. That changes things. That really mixes things up, because all of a sudden, your standard life is an additional 40 years, 50 years. But it's not about whether life is short or long. It's about life being finite. And it's about maximizing our experience. I've got a dog here chasing me. It's about maximizing our experiences in life and wanting to understand how can we get the most and the best from life. And the foundation of all of that is connecting to self, is understanding self, is knowing self. And understanding self and knowing self is simply synonymous for being self-aware. And when we are self-aware, we're engaged fully and we are connected to our path and our journey. And that in and of itself becomes a very, very different proposition, as opposed to moving through life, not being aware, not understanding, going through the motions, living to other people's expectations and values, whether it be society, whether it be family, whether it be corporate, whether it be our peer groups. That doesn't matter. What matters is that we live a life that is true to who we are. And in order to do that, we must understand ourselves. We must seek to be self-aware. And self-awareness, again, to reiterate, is self-improvement and evolution of self. Self-evolution is understanding self in such a way that we are able to connect to the fullness of our being and really exploit our potential. That's the key term here, is exploiting our potential. So understanding who we are, understanding what we're actually capable of, what we want to be capable of, what's most important to us in life, and then taking action in those areas. And it begins with wanting to be self-aware. So before we can even be self-aware, we must want to query life. We must want to engage fully in life. We must yearn to be different than where we are right now. Of course, if we are living in desirable states of being, then it doesn't matter. We don't need to change, transform, or transmute anything. But if we are living in undesirable states, we are not fully content with who we are, how we live, how we behave, how we interact with others, how we flux up and down in our emotional understanding of the world around us and of ourselves in relation to the world. If we are not content and satisfied and deeply engaged in our relationships, in our interrelationships, in our intimate relationships, in those relationships that are important to us, if we suffer in these areas, if we don't allow ourselves to be truthful and authentic in these areas, then we have an issue. And that issue is us not living authentically, congruently, transparently, and fully with self. The internet's a little bit weak here. That issue then impedes on others as well. And I spoke to selflessness before. In our society, we're conditioned to, I'm sorry if I'm screaming in the microphone as well, it's just very windy. I hope everybody can hear me well. In society, we are conditioned to, here's the paradox in society. We live, the Western world lives lives by a capitalistic framework, which by design is actually quite selfish and individualistic. Yet being selfish, overtly selfish, is not really accepted, and it's ridiculed. It's considered a negative personality trait. It's not really adored in society. Yet we require to be selfish. It is necessary for us to be selfish. It's the intent behind the selfishness. It's the manner, in which we go about being and behaving and acting selfishly that makes all the difference to our outwardly projected action and our internal frame of reference in how we move through the world, internally and externally. And what I mean by that is I want to come back to this point because it's so important, and it feeds into being self-aware, and it feeds into knowledge of self, and it feeds into understanding self and wanting to be a better version of self. And that is that when we come from a place of selfish selflessness, we are wanting to evolve our path. We are yearning to better ourselves, to evolve and come from a place of growth and understanding. Simultaneously, we are wanting to be of great service to others because we are living authentically ourselves. And if we are living authentically, then there is nothing else for us to do. Just be who you need to be. Be truthfully you in the most rawest way possible. Be truthfully you, authentically, congruently, transparently, openly, honestly you, and you are doing a great service to the world. And coming from that place is a very empowered place to come from. So being self-aware entails us knowing ourselves and having to be selfish, having to prioritize what's important to us. But again, remember, there's a caveat is to be of service to others, to be of authentic service to others. So if prioritizing yourself is detrimental to so many others, to the health of others, perhaps we need to look at those values or those priorities. And again, that tool will come back to the first tool of self-awareness. And it's all about self-inquiry. How can you inquire deeply about self, to understand self, to begin to ask questions about how your life looks and who you are, and understanding self in such a way that is unique to you, that when you ask key questions of self, such as, am I content with who I am and how I'm behaving? Thank you, Derek. Appreciate your thoughts, my friend, and your insight. Am I content with my relationships? Am I satisfied with how I behave in my relationships? Am I satisfied with how I deal with stress? Am I satisfied with the level of stress in my life? Am I satisfied with where I spend my time or where I place my focus? Am I satisfied with how I love myself? Am I satisfied with how I love others? And the questions go on and on and on. And understand that the process of self-awareness is a lifelong journey. It's not a quick fix, do 1 or 2 exercise and bam, we're healed, we're self-aware beings. It's a continuous journey because we're exposed to new experiences every day. I'm blessed now I've never walked on this part of the beach in Bali before, and I'm blessed to walk on a new beach and experience something different and do this live feed here in this amazing sun. I feel so deeply blessed, and the gratitude that I'm feeling now is different to the gratitude that I've felt in the past, even a moment ago or 10 minutes ago or 5 years ago, because we're constantly having new experiences. Joe, how are you, brother? And with those new experiences, we develop new neural pathways and we understand ourselves and the world around us very differently. So we're constantly growing and evolving, and that becomes a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And in a few days' time, my lovely partner Tania will be joining me here, and we will share these experiences and different ones together, and I will then, and she will, and we will set a new neural pathway again, and we will understand ourselves differently to what we did a week ago or a few days ago. And that's the way we grow and we evolve. But we have to be attentive to that, yeah? We have to be very self-aware. We have to be very connected to self. And we have to ask key questions of who we are in order to get there. Now, I promise you a couple of exercises and tools, right? 2 seconds. One thing I must say, which is very sad, as a side note, there's a lot of rubbish here on these beaches. And there's an interesting juxtapositioning here, such a paradox, where there's a lot of rubbish here, and then there's this. And this makes this all more appreciable. Is that even a fucking word? Appreciable? I like to make up words. I just made up one then. But you can appreciate this with far greater depth when you look at this. Anyway, just to ponder. Back to self-awareness. Tools. First one is asking key questions, the power of query. Yes, I know, it's not far. It's a beautiful place. Apparently the weather's going to be really good over the next few weeks as well. So a lot of creative time here. So I'll share a personal story with you. I travel a fair bit. I do that for work, but I do it because it's on my hierarchy of values as well. I travel, I experience exploration, meeting new people, immersing myself in new cultures, understanding people's life stories. People that travel generally, and this isn't a prejudice or a negative or a positive, it's an observation. People that travel generally are quite connected to themselves, understand themselves. Not everybody, of course, but they're quite worldly. They see the world from a different cultural lens as opposed to people that stay in one geographical location. Not to say that people that remain in one geographical location have no wisdom. That is definitely not the case. It's just that I can resonate with people that travel frequently. But now let me go back to the personal story. So the personal story is about, I'm here now for a few weeks, and I'm writing, I'm getting creative, I'm building my programs, I'm speaking at an international event, Wealth Dynamics with Roger Hamilton. So I'm a guest speaker and lecturer at a few of, it's one event, but there's a few different, we'll call them workshops or lectures and so forth. So I'm here doing that. I was going to come anyway to Bali. That's irrespective. So I'm here and I'm learning and I'm growing and I love that. But I'm here because, and I push myself. I don't have to push myself. It really happens quite effortlessly. But I make choices based on my hierarchy of values. I make choices based on what's most important to me. And I'm able to do that because I'm aware of self, because I understand self, because I'm connected to self, because I care enough about self to ask key questions and to know who I am and to know who I want to be, most importantly, as well. And understanding that leads me to a place where I can make choices that are conducive to my highest values and what's most important to me and where I want to be in life. And that's really important to me. So when we come from that place, we're learning and growing at exponential rates. So another key awareness piece is, and this is a really simple, I like to provide people that I work with very simple tools for engaging in personal development and personal growth and understanding themselves deeper. We begin very simply and we master those basics, and then when we master those basics, we're able to move from there and integrate greater complexity and a deeper understanding of self, yeah? So another tool to use with respect to being self-aware is simply just look at yourself in the mirror every day, morning and evening, and just stare at yourself. That's it. I know it sounds strange, it sounds a little bit weird, but be mindful of your thoughts when you're looking at yourself. Be mindful of what you're thinking and where your mind is going when you're looking at yourself. And do this for 3 to 5 minutes every day. You don't have to say anything, you don't have to think anything in particular or anything specific. Just observe. Sorry, I was just looking at the screen. Just observe yourself and be attentive to what comes up. You see, being self-aware is being attentive. Being attentive to self is a key component of being self-aware. Attentive to how you behave, to how you act, to your inside world and also your outside world. Remember, we spoke about that earlier. It's very important. So understanding that the more attentive we are to the intricacies of self, to the way we behave and the way we move through life, allows us to connect to self a lot deeper. And that's very important. Now, the third key principle or third key or exercise or tool that I want to share with you today is, again, very simple. The power of journaling. Journal every evening. There were many famous philosophers that stated one of the most important components of our daily lives is to reflect on the day that's passed and to understand ourselves in every way possible, to understand how we've been, how we've behaved, who we've been, and to reflect on that diligently. And journaling is a way to communicate with self. Hey boys, hello. Say hello. Steph. Kadek. Agus. How are you, my friend? Good. Say hello to Australia. Very good. Thanks, boys. Take care. Bye. See you tomorrow. That's one thing about coming to this place here. Everybody's very friendly. Everybody is very, very engaging. I won't say everybody, of course, but the majority of people are very engaging, and they sincerely. And there's a dark side. There's a dark side to every country, continent, place, of course, and some of that is what we saw before. We witnessed that in the garbage and the rubbish here, and there are a number of other facets that contribute to that. But people generally here in developing nations in particular, in my travels, in my experiences, I've found are very connected and very humble and very, very kind in their gesturing. But third key that I'm sharing with you today is journaling. Journal every evening. Seneca said this. Marcus Aurelius said this. Plato spoke to this. Socrates spoke to this. Reflect on who you've been. Reflect on who you are. Reflect on who you want to be. Reflect on how you've behaved, how you've interacted. Journal your thoughts. Journal your ideas. Journal your creative self. You will become more connected to self. Remember, synonymously, connection, awareness, understanding, knowledge of self, they go hand in hand. Just as does the term authenticity, congruency, transparency, truth. They are words that are categorized together. So when we journal, when we look at ourselves in the mirror and we observe diligently internally what is happening, when we are able to do that, when we ask key questions of self, we are practicing self-awareness, and we are becoming empowered more and more every day. Now, I apologize for this wind. I can't really apologize for it. It's not my fault, but I am out here. So I'm going to wrap up there, people. I'm going to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope it hasn't been too windy and you've been able to hear me okay. So I've got this microphone here. Whatever it is that you do in your life, whoever it is that you are, be you, be authentically you, and be on a continuous journey of self-discovery, be on a continuous path of being willing to understand self. In all areas of life, there are 9 areas of life. There is the human body, which is made up of 4 areas: the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, and the psychological. Understand the intricacies of those areas deeply. I deep dive profoundly into these areas, into my programs, my workshops, my seminars, my retreats, and so forth. The other 5 areas of life are social, relationships. Sorry, I'm just losing my footing here. Vocational, financial, and family. And those areas of life, they cover the fullness of who we are. And we begin to understand those areas and connect to those areas, we become very different people. We become people where we wake up in the morning and we're excited to be alive, and we're excited to contribute. We're excited to contribute to others, to their journey, to our path, to work collaboratively with the human family to be the best version of ourselves. Now, I want to leave you with this stunning imagery here. Nicole, thank you for joining. And I want to say thank you so much for joining me. Very much appreciate it. I hope you have a lovely evening or day, morning, wherever you are in the world. And remember, be the best version of you by simply connecting to you and being willing to be open to learning more about yourself, because it's a constant evolution. Thank you for joining me on this Transformational Thursday. Go out and transform your lives and transform the lives of others, and do it from a place of sincerity and meaning, depth, truth, congruency, authenticity. Much love to you all. Brad, thank you very much. Many blessings on your journey, and I shall speak and connect with you soon. Thank you so much.